Hello everyone. 2020's been a year. You don't need me to tell you that, but you made it. We're here. We're almost at the end. You made it. Good work. I'm proud of you. Unless you're part of the Tory cabinet. Else, haven't you got kids to starve or something? It's been a while since I've been on this channel. I do apologise for that. I have been really busy trying to make ends meet and working on new projects and working on a new YouTube channel, which I actually haven't properly mentioned yet. I started a channel with my good friend Joe Martin, old friend from primary school, so I'm really pleased to be working with him with a little bit of a focus on Asian cinema, similar stuff to what I did here with my High School Musical and Godzilla videos. You can check those out. I'll put a link in the description. It's something similar to that, so if you liked that kind of content, head over to that channel and subscribe. It'd really mean a lot, and I really fancy your AdSense, so let's crack on with the watch times, yeah? 2020 has been a bad year in terms of obvious global pandemic, but it's been a pretty good year for media. I haven't read all the books released in 2020, same goes for the films and the music. However, there was some stuff that I really enjoyed this year, and I'd be remiss not to talk about it, so I'm here talking about it. Yay, lucky you. This video is going to be mostly unscripted. I've got lists here and stuff here on my laptop that I know I want to talk about, but I'm just going to ramble for a bit. So if you don't fancy that, you can fuck off. But if you don't, let's talk about some movies and some books and some video games and some TV. I'm going to start with something that I sort of came back to this year. I'm really glad I did. Let's start with books. So I didn't read a lot of books from 2020. In fact, I might have only read one, and it was probably my most disappointing read of the year. But I'll get to that, I promise you. So let's just rattle through some of the books that I read this year and I really loved. First is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. It's no secret that I'm a huge Greta Gerwig stan, and it was definitely Gerwig that brought me back to this story that I didn't know anything about before her film, and I adored it, predictably. It was just an incredibly sweet window in time that I really loved, and all of these characters are so rich and developed and loving and caring and sweet and relatable that it just carried me through right to the end. I don't even know what I can say about Little Women. The likelihood is, like statistically, you've probably read it, but that's the lot of it. I really loved it. If you haven't read Little Women and you have seen Greta Gerwig's film, I reckon you're going to love it. Pick up a copy, it's great. Next, I read Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Daphne du Maurier is an author who I didn't really chime into until this year. My nan, for Christmas, I told her I intended to get back into reading, and she bought me a couple of books. She bought me a copy of Lorna Doone, which I still haven't started because it's huge, and a copy of Jamaica Inn by Daphne du Maurier, and I loved that book. It's absolutely stellar, and given that Ben Wheatley's film came out, I just figured Rebecca would be a really good jumping in point, so I picked up a nice copy. I read through it in about a week and I absolutely loved it. The gothic vibes that run straight through this are incredible. It starts off as an unassuming romance and it just leads you to Manderley and just sort of whisks you up in this darkness. You always feel that something's wrong, but you don't get that payoff until much later on, until that snap, and it's just divine. It's such good storytelling. If you haven't read a du Maurier book before, I think Rebecca is a really good starting point, and it's almost become one of my favourite books ever already. I mean, I did a lot of reading when I was young, but that was just a lot of YA novels. But now I'm really getting into reading. Rebecca was one that affirmed my love for books, and that's all I can ask for from a book, really. It's stellar. I suggest you read it. I'll tell you what, the one book that really brought me back right at the very start of the year, I got a Kindle because my dad works at Rowcroft and he's able to get some cheap tech, so I got a cheap Kindle in the hopes of reading Little Women nice and cheap. I did buy that copy anyway because I love stuff, but either way I had a Kindle and I was browsing the store and I found this, Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. This book is stellar. Now, I didn't love her most recent book, Ghosts. I will talk about Ghosts. So I'm kind of worried to come back to this one. Forgive the Tesco stickers, by the way. I brought a physical copy because, again, I love stuff. I never had the experience of falling so deeply in love with a book that I couldn't physically put it down, and I'd bring it to bed with me and I'd wrap myself up in my duvet and I'd have a little cry reading it. It's really, really beautiful. I'm worried about what I'll think about it on reflection now that I've read Ghosts and didn't really like it that much. But at the time, I needed to read this to get me back into reading, and I loved every second of it. Strong recommend. That brings me... it brings me to Ghosts. I fucking hated this book. I read a review which kind of blew up a little bit that utterly scathed this book, and I can't fault it. It's pretty accurate in its assessment of the book. Some of the dialogue is completely fucking wonky. Some of the dialogue is awful. This is a book that is basically... Hang on, let me grab it. Here's how I imagine it. Ghosts is Queenie if Queenie was incredibly unlikable. I couldn't connect with this... I can't remember her name. Is it Nina? It's Nina. Nina Dean. She's obscenely... She's so rude to her mum for no reason. She's not very nice to her friends, and it doesn't make any sense as to why she's so cruel to the people around her that she supposedly loves. It's quite exhausting, to be honest. I couldn't love this book. If you wanted to read Ghosts and you liked Dolly Alderton's style, I can't fully recommend this book, but I can fully recommend Queenie by Candace Carty-Williams. It's a stellar read. It's just so lovely and sweet, and it touches on some incredibly important ideas, and it touches on mental health in a really soothing way. And I think it's quite an important message that is tucked away in this incredibly readable book that you sort of just dissolve into for a little bit. And I think Carty-Williams has such a great voice, and she puts incredible personality into Queenie while keeping her from being dislikable in the same way that Nina Dean is. So if you wanted to read Ghosts, read Queenie instead. Okay, that's it on the book end. I read a bunch of books that I tried to log on my Goodreads, but then I sort of fell out of it because it wasn't very fun to directly quantify something that I was supposed to be doing for fun. So I'm sort of cutting myself off from that kind of area of logging everything that I do on the internet. Letterboxd is useful for me as a film journalist to note when and what I gave a film when I watched it. But Goodreads is sacked off. Okay, again, one that I didn't actually consume a lot of media from this year, but I did do a lot this year. Let's talk about some... There's only so much I can say, really, this year. I got an Xbox Series X, which I've been pouring my life into. I love it to pieces. But I've been using Game Pass a lot, and I've been playing a lot of games that come through there. The ones especially that I've really loved were Star Wars Battlefront 2 and Nier Automata. Nier Automata especially, it's such a dense world that's so brilliantly packed in, and the gameplay is so satisfying and clicky, and the combat is so diverse, and everything is customizable, and it's a really good game. I'm really looking forward to Replicant, and I'm looking to read some of the novels that come with the series as well. But it's a brilliant game. It's on Game Pass. Pick it up. Same goes for Battlefront 2, which has a really fun story, and it's stupid because you hear it all the time in video game journalism when you play Spider-Man and somebody says, yeah, you feel like Spider-Man. You feel like you're really in that world. The graphics are absolutely stellar. The gameplay is so much fun. Strongly recommend. And also, I spent a lot of time playing Animal Crossing New Horizons this year. I spent a few months really, really cracking in on it, making my village brilliant. And then I forgot about it. And then I came back to check in on Rod, who is the absolute best villager in the world. I won't hear anything of it. And I've sort of just been on-off like that. I played it again the other day, and my mate Beardo was thinking about leaving, and I let him go because I thought, I deserve this. I've been away for too long. I need to feel hurt to bring me back. That's all I've got for video games, so let's talk about some... Again, I'm awful for this. The only TV show that I watched this year that I fell completely head over heels for was season 2 of The Mandalorian. Oh my days! You hear people talk about The Mandalorian like it's this huge, incredible thing that has breathed life back into Star Wars, but it's true. It has. It's remarkable. The one thing that I respect it the most for is Ludwig Göransson's score. It's unbelievable how easily he's able to create a world that's already rooted in the universe of Star Wars, but create something so new and fresh and exciting. It feels like a space western that follows a side character, and that's exactly what Star Wars needed for its first series. It's brilliant. If you are a fan of Star Wars, you will love it, I promise. I also watched a lot of TV with my partner. We've been binging Bob's Burgers all year, but that's because it's one of the most bingeable shows in the world. But we also watched Michaela Cole's I May Destroy You, which is so brilliantly written, and I'm so upset that Michaela Cole hasn't been given the Phoebe Waller-Bridge treatment, because she so deserves it. She's such an incredible talent. And we also watched Girl From Nowhere, which is a Japanese show, which is just fantastic. I don't want to spoil anything for you. Watch Girl From Nowhere, it's brilliant. My hat's falling off. I'm getting too intense. I love Girl From Nowhere. It's so good. Oh, we're going cold. That's all I got for you in the way of TV. We're going to move on into... We're going a little bit more quantifiable now. I've got a top 5 of albums that I really, really loved this year. But I have got some honourable mentions because of course I can. There's been so much good music this year that it's hard for me to sort of narrow everything down. So... honourable mentions are as follows. I'm going to read them straight off my laptop. RTJ4 by Run the Jewels, Flip Phone Fantasy by Ocean Grove, Future Nostalgia by Dua Lipa, even though Good in Bed is one of the worst songs I've heard all year. The Album by Blackpink, and Royal Swan by Foxjaw. If I can urge you to listen to any of those off that honourable mentions list, listen to Royal Swan by Foxjaw, because they're a brilliant band. They're gonna be fucking massive, so you're gonna want to jump on that train before they properly take off. My 5th favourite album of the year was Cannibal by Bury Tomorrow. I'm sorry, boys. I'm sorry. If you know me, or you've known me for a while, you'll know how obsessed I've been with Bury Tomorrow for most of my teen years. They were my first proper heavy show, and that gig was a completely transformative experience for me back in the Runes tour. It's what prompted me to get this first tattoo. I've loved this band forever. For as long as I've been into heavy music, Bury Tomorrow have been there and have been the gold standard for sort of old school metalcore still kicking around, and Cannibal is probably their most diverse work. It's their first album that's really brutally personal and incredibly real. With their other works, take Union of Crowns or Runes, there's always an element of it being a concept record. That's something that they've carried for most of their careers, but Cannibal is a real step away from that, and a real inward-looking record that's full of really brutally pounding riffs. Dark Infinite's breakdown is still ridiculous, and Cannibal is a shining example of how Bury Tomorrow are one of the absolute best metalcore bands in the UK, and I think they're going to be that way for a long time. And I don't know how many more albums it's going to take, but if that band aren't selling out arenas in the next 10 years, I'm going to be sorely miserable for the state of music, because they are absolutely phenomenal. My 4th favourite album of the year was Biffy Clyro's A Celebration of Endings. I did not expect to love this record as much as I did. I've liked Biffy Clyro sort of in the background while all the other music sort of sweeps past. I've loved their singles and sometimes disconnected with their records. I think this record is their best. It's so diverse and sort of optimistic and brilliantly theatrical and orchestral when it needs to be, muted in other moments. It's a really brilliant package that showcases just what Biffy Clyro has been doing in the music scene for the past however many fucking years they've been operating. But they are a proper beacon for British music and rock music on the radio. I think this is by far their best work, and some of the tunes on this record are absolutely incredible. The opening track especially is next level. Check it out. If you've liked any of Biffy Clyro's previous work, you are going to love this record. You have my word. Okay, we're getting weird now. My 3rd favourite record of the year is I Disagree by Poppy. At the start of the year, sort of pre-COVID UK, I listened to this record to and from university every day for about 2 months. I was completely obsessed with this record. It mixes that sugary sweet vocal style that Poppy has become known for with such savage, brutal nu metal like vibes that just punch you in the chest. It's remarkable, and it uses so much digital experimentation that it's even if you're not a big fan of the end product, it's like a car crash you can't look away from. It's a beautiful mess, is the best way I can describe it. Some of the messaging on this record is incredibly powerful, and it's not what I expected from Poppy this year, and that's what makes Poppy so great. You don't expect anything from Poppy, and she will surprise you at every single turn, and she did with this record. So if you like experimental heavy music, Poppy is one of the best experimental heavy records of the year. But not the best. The best heavy experimental record of this year, and my number 2 pick, is Underneath by Code Orange. Fuck me sideways, what a record. I thought I knew what to expect after listening to Forever, but they just kept adapting and getting angrier and more like tactile and invasive and brutal. Underneath is their heaviest record, it's their weirdest record, and it's a record that gets its fingers on your brain, and it preempts what you think it's going to do and does the exact opposite at every single turn. Not even song by song. Mid-song, it will change it entirely and completely fuck you in the head. I have an undying respect for bands who can change themselves so drastically that they know for certain that you're not going to see what they're going to do next coming. And Code Orange do that numerous times on this record. I think Underneath by Code Orange is the future of music. Just full stop. They are ahead of their time by fucking miles. And in 20 years, heavy music is all going to sound like Underneath, and it's going to feel new. But just remember, they did it first, and let's assume that they did it best, because this album is absolutely stellar. I can't recommend it highly enough. If you like weird shit, if you like heavy shit, this is your record of the year. You have to listen to this record. I'm so enthusiastic. I love Code Orange. I'm taking this jumper off. I'm really warm. Joseph Kime's number 1 album of the year. Don't pretend you didn't see this coming. Nothing is True and Everything is Possible by Enter Shikari. Speaking its name sends shivers down my spine. I love this record with every fibre of my being. I don't know if I want to call it Enter Shikari's best, because they produced one of my favourite... In fact, no, they produced my favourite album of all time, A Flash Flood of Colour. And the most interesting thing about Enter Shikari is the way that they have adapted and changed. Not because they've been forced to, but because they know it's what's right for them. And that's something that I can respect just off the bat. But Nothing is True and Everything is Possible is a theatrical, dramatic, open-ended, intelligent masterpiece. I think Ralph Reynolds, just without hyperbole, is a complete fucking genius, and I will be there to lap up anything he puts down. It's awful that I've got that kind of bias, but I owe Rao and Enter Shikari for introducing me to politics at, I guess, a young age when I was a teenager, and Flash Flood of Colour is the only reason that I give a shit about world events. I don't think they've ever put out a bad record, and this is a staple of that. It's not as heavy as their previous work, but it's more weird and introspective, and just there's a lot of musical prowess on show here. That Rao is really flexing his muscles, and I love that about it. It's a peacock of a record, and it's a complete enigma. It does stick out in their discography, but that's only because it's so abruptly different from the rest of their work. I have no choice but to respect it. I love this album from front to back. I could listen to it forever. I can't recommend it enough. Good album. It's film journalist time. We're doing... Again, I have a top 5. It's been really hard to rattle these down, so I do have some honourable mentions. They are as follows: The Lighthouse, Mogul Mowgli, Palm Springs, Lovers Rock, Da 5 Bloods. Banging films, love them. We started with number 5, my 5th favourite film of 2020, UK release dates, let's keep that in mind, is Uncut Gems by the Safdies. I didn't think Adam Sandler had a redemption arc in him, and Uncut Gems is that redemption arc. Uncut Gems, as my housemate will attest, is one of the most stressful films I have ever seen. It's something that the Safdies are incredibly good at just building tension, and right when you think it's going to release, you get more tension. It's an almost uncomfortable, unbearable experience to watch, but it's so brilliantly compact, and it's a story that's so well told and so brilliantly stacked up on top of each other that it's impossible to look away. It's a cinematic endurance test, and that's something that the Safdies are going to be incredible at going forward. Good Time was great, but Uncut Gems is so far their absolute best, and Adam Sandler should have been nominated for an Oscar. I'm furious that he wasn't. My fourth favourite film of the year is Mangrove. This was my first big cry of London Film Festival. It's proof that Steve McQueen is one of the absolute best of British in terms of directing. He really, really smashed it out of the park on this one. It's an emotionally affecting story that is only made stronger by the fact that it is, of course, a true story. It's so brilliant. The cinematography is excellent. The performances are absolutely stellar. I'd shout out Letitia Wright if she wasn't being a wanker on the internet. But it's the first film of the Small Axe series. I really loved Lovers Rock as well, but Mangrove is the absolute crowning feature of that. So make sure you check it out. It is still on iPlayer, I think. So watch it. You haven't got an excuse unless you don't pay your TV license. In that case, solidarity. My number 3 pick of 2020 releases is Portrait of a Lady on Fire by Celine Sciamma. I hope to God I pronounced that right. Celine, if you're watching, I'm so sorry. I almost can't say a lot about this film. It's one of the most romantic films I've ever seen. It's one of the most emotionally involving as well. It's so beautiful. The landscapes are utterly stunning, and the performances are just next level. Everything is so meticulous and brilliantly planned, and I fell in love with it immediately. It was such an incredible story. The ending is one of the best endings I've seen in films all year. I watched Portrait of a Lady on Fire. I can't gas up this film more than anybody else on Twitter can. So go and watch Portrait of a Lady on Fire if you haven't already. It's an absolute essential. Picking my top 2 was really hard because one of them technically came out last year, and one of them is an understated, almost indie film that I think is easily one of the best films of the 2020s already, and I think is gonna stick out and become a bit culty. But that is my number 2 pick. It's Never Really, Sometimes Always by Eliza Scanlon. Oh my god, I keep saying it's one of the best ever and all that business. I've never cried harder at a film, ever. Sydney Flanagan's performance in this film, even as a newcomer, is unbelievable and heart-wrenching. It's a story that tells itself so eloquently, and it's a story that's so important and crucial as well, that it makes the events of the film, that sort of twist as they go on, even more impactful. It's a painful film to watch, quite frankly, but that's only a testament to Eliza's directing and Flanagan's performance. I was so impressed by this film. I knew I would adore this film going into it, and I came out of it feeling even better about it. It's stunning. I want to watch it again now. That's what this has done. You have to watch Never Really, Sometimes Always. It is brutal, shocking, heartbreaking, and essential. It's time for my favourite film of the year. Drum roll, please. It's Parasite. Fuck it, of course it is. Of course it's fucking Parasite. Bong Joon-ho is one of the best directors working today. Parasite is so good. I'm going to assume that you've seen Parasite already, because if you haven't, you've got to be deaf and blind. But Bong Joon-ho is one of the greatest directors working today. Watching this film at the start of the year was incredible. I got to see it in a cinema, thank God. And it was just remarkable. I went into it, everybody had said, this is one of the greatest films of the decade. And I was like, okay, that's high praise. Let's see how it is. The film ended and I thought, that's one of the best films of the decade. Whatever you've heard people say about Parasite, whether it's 4.6 average on Letterboxd or everyone on film Twitter saying it's one of the best films they've ever seen, they're right. Then, this isn't hyperbole. Parasite is as good as you've heard it is. I can't put it into words. Everything is so brilliantly thought out. Everything is purposeful. Everything has its place. And everything comes together right at the end in an incredible punch. I cannot recommend Parasite enough. If I'm recommending any film from the 2010s or the 2020s, whichever way you want to swing it, the one film that I can say that I don't think anybody will hate, it's Parasite. It's remarkable, and I'm gonna gas up Bong Joon-ho for the rest of my life. I went on a huge binge on Bong Joon-ho films with my partner after we fell in love with Parasite, and quite frankly, I've seen I think 4 of his films now, and he hasn't missed. He can't miss. It's not in him. He has to make the best films in the world, and he does. I'm so constantly impressed by his style and his finesse and his ability to take any genre of film and make it fucking brilliant. I'm so intense. I'm so sorry. Parasite is really good. Watch Parasite. Okay, it's time to calm down now. It's the end of the video. Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. I'm sorry I haven't been very active on this YouTube channel. I'm going to be more active on Kaiju Club now. So if you want to head over there and subscribe, it'd mean a lot. Who knows what 2021 will bring. Hopefully, less virus. But only time will tell. I know 2021 is going to be much better for blockbusters. And I'm really fucking looking forward to Dune. Because I read the book this year and it was big and it was fine. So this film had better be bloody brilliant to justify me reading about 600 words of fine. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your presence here with me on this channel. It does mean a lot. Big love and kisses. I will see you in the new year. Take care of yourself.
Let's say we're on this court right here, right?